Welcome to the Brooklyn podcast with yours truly, Anthony Puccio, my co-host, Colin Helwig. Colin, how you doing over there?
I'm good, brother. We are almost at the All-Star break, except we don't have any All-Stars. So for us, it is just the break, but hey, we need it. So we will absolutely take it. How are you doing, brother?
Doing good over here. I'm officially 30. This is my first podcast as a 30-year-old old man. I still have my hair, as I always tell you, but we're here at the All-Star break. It's probably much needed for Nets fans, even though we don't have anybody in the game itself. We do have Cam Johnson in the three-point contest,
Hmm.
but we enter the All-Star break. The Nets have pulled off a bunch of wins, probably in a lot of places we least expected it. Last night against the Hornets, they eclipsed their preseason total or projection, I should say, which was 19. So I was terribly wrong about my preseason predictions with the Nets, Colin. I said that they were winning 17 games. They've done that. They've eclipsed it. They've defied odds makers. But one thing we weren't wrong about was Ben Simmons. I mean, Ben Simmons has been bought out, and this is the latest news. This is the big news around the Nets right now: is that the Ben Simmons era in Brooklyn has come to an end. They finally bought him out. Now that it's over and insanity is done, we're still going to talk about it. So if you had to say, how would you describe the Ben Simmons era in Brooklyn in one word?
It would just be wrong. It was wrong from the start. It was wrong when it was still in the present. And now looking at it in hindsight, it is wrong in the past as well. I feel like when the Nets first traded for him, there was a lot of coping and, hey, we still got Katie, we still got Kyrie, we're still going for it. And while an original Ben Simmons, a Ben Simmons that we saw in Philadelphia might have still made that possible, it became clear from the jump that that was no longer the case. Now, there were some spurts, there were some moments that made you believe for a bit, but that's all they were. They were always followed by moments that brought you back down to earth and even lower than earth in some cases. In some cases, it felt like the fiery place below earth watching him play. But I think it was wrong from the jump because really the first time in a very long time the Nets became notable and fun and a team that even people not in Brooklyn were able to get behind was when it was the We Go Hard team in 2019. And one of the first images that comes to mind of that season is Jared Dudley doing the thing to Ben
Yeah,
Simmons. And the Nets won that first game of that series and then they lost four in a row, and that was all she wrote. But that team lives on in NBA lore and fans, and it's a team that people still kind of romanticize about. So years later to trade for Ben Simmons, it felt like we were really getting away from what made that Nets team so lovable by trading for the guy who
yeah,
was not just Jared Dudley's enemy in that moment, but you look back earlier in that series, Joel Embiid clocked Jared Allen and Ben Simmons laughed about it on the podium. It
yeah.
seemed like it was a betrayal of that Nets team when they were like the young scrappy Nets, and then it was a betrayal to the Super Nets team where he just wasn't there enough for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to win with. The dribble bros, whatever you want to call them, they were stretch floor offense, high octane offense. Now we have a guy who can't stretch the floor at all. It seemed like it was just wrong on the court. It was wrong in terms of vibes. It was wrong in terms of the identity of the team. And now we can say it's over. And I think that's for the better for all parties.
If I had to say one word about this trade, it was backwards for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. But from right from the get go, what happened with his medical report when he got traded here? And it's not to revisit the past so much, but it's to say, like, how did we get here? And when you ask those questions, like, all right, it's a culmination of things. And how did that big three break up and everything? All that, you know, we could beat it to death. But when you ask how we got here, one, how did they not look at his medical report? I understand that James Harden quit on the Nets, and there were a lot of circumstances that he had to be out. But like, what was Sean Marks doing? Like, the biggest thing they got was two first round picks. One that wasn't worth much in 2022. They have another one that's heavily protected in 2027. With the medical report with Sean Marks, and then just the circumstances of the situation, you had KD and Kyrie still here, and your championship window was open. I had tweeted this: Ben Simmons coming here, a broken Ben Simmons coming here. It didn't reassure them, and I know that firsthand. They just didn't rock with him. Like they didn't feel that he wanted to play. They didn't feel like he was part of it. They didn't feel like he was in the trenches with them. That Boston series, uh, you know, from Ben's camp and his people, like he was very hurt. From people that were on that team, they felt like, you know what, like at least suit up, at least try and suit up for us. So I don't even know if they needed a superstar. They didn't need a big three. They needed a competent basketball player that was
Mhm.
just going to show up and do what he needed to do. But then you piggyback and you really look in hindsight, and a lot of people were getting upset with me on X for saying this, but like I don't dispute the James Harden trade, Colin, but you did give up Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, and a boatload of picks to get Harden, who then quit on you and you moved him for Ben Simmons. Like you gutted your whole team for Harden, then traded him for a broken product.
Yeah.
The broken product came here and you didn't even know it was broken because you didn't do your due diligence or you decided to ignore it. So I'm calling this also the worst move of Sean Marks' career. Look, he's made his mistakes. He's had his good pulls and he's had his bad pulls. This is rock bottom for Sean Marks, and really not the reason why the big three fell apart, or better yet, the superstar era with KD and Kyrie in 7-11, but it was definitely a big part of why KD and Kyrie both did not trust this front office at all to build a team. It was because this guy's hurt. He's not playing.
Mhm.
He's not going to help us. So what are we doing here? And what is the front office doing here? So, Colin, I'm saying it's Sean Marks' worst decision, and that's not even bringing up that Ben was paid an average of $36 million. I mean, this is highway robbery for a
Mhm.
basketball player. And now he's playing in Los Angeles, and God bless him. I wish him the best. I hope he has a good career. But is it basketball that he's prioritizing, or does Ben Simmons get to live in LA, play for a good team, and
It's not our job. It's not our job to worry about anymore.
oh my God. I mean,
I hear where you're coming from, though.
it's exhausting. And it's been exhausting from the day that we started this podcast, which was in July.
Yes.
You know, the it was a whole lot of talk. It was a whole lot of hype videos and pictures and
Mhm.
jump shooting videos to the average 6'6", which a lot of people have called out as a funny thing. But you know, yeah, do the sign of the cross, light the sage, like I said. But it
Uh,
just like you said, it was like sacrilege in the Nets world to begin with because of how hated he was. But just how everything happened, how much money they paid him, how Sean Marks, it was a lose-lose trade, but he really, really lost that trade.
I still think the Nets' best chance at winning a championship would have been telling James Harden, "Shut up, play out your contract, and then, like, go ahead and be a free agent. If we lose you, we lose you." Now, they didn't know
Right.
what was gonna happen with Simmons, but getting a last playoff run with the big 3 would have been a better chance at winning a title than having a year and a half of Ben Simmons and whoever was after that. So that is you hit the nail on the head in terms of that Sean Marks is not his original sin, but it's his bad one. It's his big strikeout with the bases loaded because there's a lot of people criticize him for a lot of stuff that maybe isn't totally fair. That 100%, that was a miss, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It just signaled the beginning of the end. And you
yeah.
could see the distrust and just the overall disgust by his
Mhm.
own peers. Now then, you know, they move on, and I don't want to fall down this hole too much. They move on, and Mikal Bridges and these guys are here, and they're saying, you know, we're gonna embrace him and we're gonna push him and all of this, and that's great. But the team stunk, and he didn't really do much. He didn't play much last year. When he's
Yeah.
played this year, he's a liability with Claxton next to him, as you've mentioned several times. So
Oh, it's over. That's what's important.
yeah, farewell. There was damage, and now we wish him the best in Los Angeles. Seriously, as a person, as a basketball player, and to Bernie Lee, the agent, all the best with him too. He was fun to follow on Twitter.
Bingo. Bingo.
So we could put that to officially. We could put Ben Simmons to rest now.
Mhm. Mhm. Play the
God
trumpets.
bless you, Ben. God bless you, Ben. That was the loudest noise that we heard during the trade deadline. The Nets really they didn't make any moves. I mean, you know, what do you think about that? You know, Sean Marks is usually a pretty quiet GM around the deadline, but what do you make about that? Anything at all?
Yeah, I mean, we always knew this was a possibility that they would do nothing. I think it makes it more likely that they'll trade Cam Johnson in the summer than they won't because I think you wouldn't have heard murmurs. Like they're clearly thinking about it. They're still going to be fielding offers. We've also spoken a lot about how Sean seems to be more comfortable waiting until the summer where there's less pressure. And, you know, we just talked about Ben Simmons, like his when he was it seems like he was pressured into that deal. I don't know if you read the story. It was Daryl Morey was on the phone screaming at him like, "No, we got to do this now." I think he knows his strengths and he knows that he's better being the guy at the table, the Godfather, saying, "You come to me with your deal, and we'll go from there." Than, "Oh shit, the clock's ticking down. We got to get together and we got to figure this out right now." So it's definitely gonna be something I would expect them to revisit in the summer. But I think if you were expecting fireworks, then you were going down the wrong tunnel. This was always something that could have happened. I guess you can call it disappointing, but not shocking, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the age where people care more about the trade deadline than they actually do the games themselves. So, like you said,
Right.
that drama is just so it gives people like a dopamine high. It's something different for NBA fans. But
Yeah.
in regards to Cam Johnson, you hit the nail on the head. They don't need to rush with him. And the second question is, are they going to try and win next year? Because then it would be a nice piece to have around. And by
Mhm.
win, I'm not saying go and try and win a championship, but you get some of these high draft picks in here. You put a competitive team around them. Maybe you do land the star, maybe you don't. But can't like I've said this from day one to you, Colin. Like I never felt like Shaw Marks was ever going to sell low on Cam J. Like he signed him to that big contract because he believed in him. He was young. He was 26 when he signed that deal. He's only 28 now. And he could really help going forward if their goal is to win games. If not, then you could revisit this summer. Teams aren't going to be as desperate, but they're going to be trying to round out their rosters, and everybody could use a stretch four. I'm more looking at the trade deadline and the Nets' lack of movement, but more so their movements leading up to this. Like I still don't really fully understand the D'Lo stuff besides other than like matching salaries. But like
Mhm.
we're seeing D'Lo like actually help them win basketball games. Like we're seeing Cam Johnson actually help them win basketball games. Like the tank is in a weird place. It's present. They're not really far off from who they were last year.
Correct.
Like,
Yeah.
and that's not good. That's not a good. You don't want to win 31 games this year.
Yeah. I think what they do is they're kind of like hedging the fact that the odds are it's lottery odds, not you're the worst team, you get the best pick. They're hedging that with like also establishing culture. And I'm not going to act like for months in a row I haven't said like, all right, by February they need to be tanking hard. Your easiest, closest path to a title is probably by fully bottoming out. But I understand that there are other paths as well. So I'm not going to be hypocritical here and act like I'm going to take it all back now that they're verging away from a hard tank. Like, because I still think that that's probably the best thing to do, but they're not. And it is what it is. And, you put your shots up and they're going in a lot more than actually, truthfully, if it's their defense that has been otherworldly lately, which is why they're on this run. But you get the point that I'm saying is that you can't expect the players to go out and not try every night. That's not what they're going to do. That's not what the coaches are going to do. And that the NBA wouldn't have that either. And, it's going to feel like highway robbery if the Nets somehow win a bunch of games and make this place like almost like a destination for free agents. And then
Right.
they do get lucky. When the Wizards got John Wall, the Nets were the worst team in the league that year, and the Wizards jumped them. So maybe 10 years later, Lady Luck will get us back. Lady Luck has been not just mean, but like tormentive to Brooklyn Nets fans the last 10 years. So it would be quite the turnaround. But I think that's just something in the back of everyone's mind in the organization. It's like at the end of the day, it still is what it is. So you can't
Yeah.
proceed too hard down any corner.
Yeah. Like you said, they're trying to strike a balance between one establishing Jordy, establishing an identity, establishing a culture, showing that you're not completely incompetent and that you can win when you actually try in
Mhm.
Brooklyn, but also, like you said, be in those top 5 for the lottery odds, and it's all a lottery. Nothing is guaranteed.
And no one like obviously Cooper Flag's the golden goose, but like, dude, this draft is so loaded. Like you can be a good team next year if you draft four good borderline great players and also be a good team next year if you just have like Cooper Flag. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
yes, the number one path is you draft some superstar, Michael Jordan, Giannis, LeBron, and the number one, number three, number two pick, and you go from there. But there are other ways to do it. Like I hate using the Thunder example too much because they've really built that team up coming in a lot of different angles, and the Nets don't have a Shea right now, but they drafted all these other guys. They had all these picks, and Chet was a high pick, but Jalen Williams was a little bit further back. And there's ways you can do it. We don't know who the busts are going to be next year. That's another thing that you're like hedging against. Like, yeah, you want a higher pick, but like maybe they have a guy that they're like really, really, really like, and they just trust their scouting department. There's a lot more that goes into it than just we got to be number one so we can take the guy who is the number one of everyone's board. These teams make their own
Yeah.
decisions at the end of the day.
There again, I just don't know because there's part of me. I wrote a preseason article that was like they need to strike a balance, and everything that they're doing is like quite literally what I had asked. But now I'm living it, and I'm like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. I do understand like the tankers being frustrated that you don't offload Cam J because you're asking for too high. But I also understand the people that don't. You know, I understand both sides, and this is the predicament that Nets fans face with this whole tanking stuff is that we've never really been in this situation, and at least since they've moved to Brooklyn, they've never been able to actually root for a good draft pick of their own because they have never had their own draft pick,
Correct.
right? Like the last time we said that they had a lottery pick that was their own was '09. They were 12 and 70. You just mentioned it,
Hmm.
John Wall. So again, I'm a little bit confused by Sean Marks, but I also understand how he operates and what he's trying to instill, and he's succeeding at what he wants to do. This is
Hmm.
Mark's ball. This is Mark's culture. Jordy Fernandez was the right head coach. Now he really has to execute though. If they fall, Colin, there's going to be a lot of people that are pointing out a lot of wild situations. The D'Lo 3 point game winner, and just these like random wins that they're getting right now.
Hmm.
I think the last time that we were on, they were like 3 or 4 games away from being a bottom three team, and right now, if there were no lottery odds, they would be number six.
Correct.
Um,
Yeah.
they're 3 games away from 5 and 7 away from a bottom three. So that ship is kind of sailed.
Mm.
But you know, it is what it is. Is there anything as a like take your reporter's glasses off for a second and put yourself in a fan perspective. Like, is there anything that you would have just liked to see them do? Like just for the sake of like actually enjoying watching this team play?
So you mean like in terms of watching them like with the on court product, like at the trade deadline, or still like big picture in general?
It could be anything. Anything as a fan, as just somebody that you're watching your favorite basketball team.
I mean, this might not be the answer you're looking for, but my answer is no, because I came into this understanding what this season was going to be. It was not going to be one where there's a lot of enjoyment in it, and like I've accepted that from the jump. I don't think a lot of other people have accepted that. And whether their enjoyment is we're the worst team, we're a lock for getting Cooper Flag. That's one side of enjoyment, or the other half is we want to win games, or and the other half is I just want to see D'Lo ball out because he's back. Like none of these people are going to be like happy at once, and because that's the nature of the season. And we've had this conversation so many times and we've explained the different sides of it, and it's because it's constantly like a pendulum. Like, why are we talking about, oh well, here kind of the good sides of it because Jordy and culture? It's because they've won 6 of their last 7 or 5 of their last 6 or whatever. But
Yeah.
if they were bottoming out more, then we'd be like, oh well, this is leaning into more tank, we're gonna get this guy. And that, like, it's everything's so fluid, and it's what happens when you play 82 games. You're going to swing one way, you're going to swing back the other way. Do I think the Nets are going to keep up this pace? No, but they are right now, so you just got to kind of deal with it.
You know what? A lot of people that are complaining, like Sean Marks didn't have to trade Schroeder when he did. He didn't have to trade Dorian Finney-Smith when he did. Like they could have squeezed more wins out early in the season. Some might say, you know what? Good thing Sean Marks didn't make any moves because he already made the big moves that he needed to earlier in the season. That's a different perspective of looking at this. But Colin, it's February 11th. We're going into the All-Star break. It obviously hasn't been the easiest season to cover. Um, for me, as from a fan's perspective, it would have been nice to see like a young cast off that hasn't worked out. Just somebody to look forward to when I turn the TV on.
Hmm.
Like Cam Thomas was that guy for me this year. I
him
think he
him
was
getting
for a
hurt
lot of
this
people.
year has been a very underrated part of what's made this season so sour.
Right. Right. At least like at least if you're losing all these games, you have somebody to watch. He's fun. He's a scorer. He could do anything with the ball on any given night.
Yeah.
We don't have that. Like I understand the D'Lo effect, and people really do love him and root hard for him. But like I don't know, that excitement kinda dropped for me after a couple of weeks. But we go into the All-Star break, yet another year without an All-Star. I think even during the 7-Eleven era, like, one year was COVID year, so I don't know even what happened during all of that. Um, KD didn't play in those All-Star games, if I'm not mistaken. He
He was
never
always
suited up.
hurt. He was always hurt
He's
or something.
right. He never played.
He was
I
traded
don't
the
know if
last time.
yeah. I don't know if Kyrie.
Kyrie played in the COVID year, I believe. I'm
So the
pretty sure. It was when they
like
wore
the
they had those, like, yellow jerseys.
yeah. Okay. So
I
they've
mean,
really
they were both named as starters their last year on the Nets, except the Nets traded them, like, 2 days before. It was the first time ever there were 2 all-star starters who were traded simultaneously, so
so
history.
Nets fans haven't been able to really actually enjoy the All-Star game with someone that they could call their own. I mean, I guess that Kyrie year, but D'Lo, when he was a replacement, um, what do you have any memories that really stick out to you this All-Star break? I mean, we have Cam Johnson in the three-point contest, but, is there anything that sticks out to you?
Well, I mean, Joe Harris beating Steph Curry in the three-point contest was pretty fun. I think not a lot of people knew who Joe Harris was on a national scale. A lot of people outside of Brooklyn didn't know who he was. So to see him beat Steph Curry in his like peak, that was really cool. I think Spencer Dinwiddie won the skills challenge, I think like a year before
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny because like, people make fun of the Nets for being like a little brother, but like I don't always think that's such a bad thing. Like at the end of the day, you are who you are. And I think it's funny that the Nets have had success in these kind of like little brother events, such as like
Yeah.
maybe not the game. Well, the 3-point contest is probably more entertaining than the All-Star game at this point. Maybe even the skills
Yeah.
challenge too.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm wrong on that one, but kind of these kind of the afterthought sequences. It's been fun to watch the Nets in that, and I'm excited to watch Cam J going it this year. But in terms of the game, yeah, there's not a whole lot there.
They don't have much. J Kidd days were different. He
Mm,
was throwing balls off the backboard, and watching him with other players was fun. But Joe Harris hit. I mean, there was nothing like that. And I remember at the time, uh, me and my friends. I'm not a better by any means, but me and my friends, we had like a big party for the 3-point contest and slam dunk competition. There was like
mm,
10 of us, 15 of us, whatever. Nobody had ever heard of Joe Harris. The average, like, whatever, not even NBA fan. My friends are just casuals. Like, they
yeah,
didn't really know who he was outside of us talking about it. So I think we all threw like $5 or $10 into the pot and bet
nice.
Joe Harris at like a plus 450. So it was a big house bet. So when he beat Steph, we were going crazy. Like, that was really like nobody, and I mean nobody thought that was coming, and that was probably the greatest Nets All-Star Weekend moment ever. Not to sensationalize it, but like at least from speaking for myself, like they had that. Like Joe Harris was like such an embodiment of their culture at the time and like who they were. That
Mm,
like that when like you said, it felt so much bigger than it actually was. Like,
correct. Yeah.
for Nets fans, it was like we will take anything that we can get, especially at that time. All those Boston trades and everything like that, Lionel Holland years, like we were just so desperate pulling at straws for any
Mm,
type of success.
yeah.
So now that we speak about like all stars and Nets not having one, who's going to be the next one?
It's really funny because I've talked about how much I don't want the Nets to sign Giannis or trade for Giannis, but if you were to bet who's going to be the next Brooklyn Nets All Star, Giannis is probably the best bet in terms of because look at the team right now. They don't have All Stars. They didn't really have anyone who was close. The pathway getting there is probably gonna and it's gonna involve some huge leaps. Now that huge leap is either a trade for someone like Giannis or Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas might have had a shot this year if he stayed healthy, but unfortunately, Cam Thomas, we talk about the development of his game and how that's kind of his passing, his defense has held him back. The health is starting to become something that's holding him back just as much. That's neither here nor there, but that is a big thing that needs to happen. Or they need to get super lucky and draft Cooper Flag this summer, and then 2 years go by, and then he's in the All Star conversation. So all of those are big swings that need to happen. And just because the Giannis and the Nets noise, and it's been reported that the Nets want Giannis, if I'm betting, then I'm betting that the Nets' next All Star is Giannis. Again, don't want that to happen. I would prefer it to be Cam Thomas gets healthy, balls out for a year, finally gets the love he deserves. The other one would be, I mean, the other name who it's not looking too hot in Minnesota. Anthony Edwards would probably be. I mean, this would need to be like a Bovada like odds thing where it's like super. I won't call them an offshore book, but
You're
not.
bringing Anthony Edwards into the conversation. I was laughed at on the show when I brought his name up a
I
couple
mean,
months ago.
you have to look at the guys who are stars, who are good enough to be all stars and could be traded. I'm not saying that these are like it's all going to be like plus 10,000 bets, all of these, but you have to look at guys who will definitely be an all star in the next 3 to 4 years and just might leave their destination. That is
Yeah,
where it all is. The reason it's Giannis, I think, is the leader is because he's been the only one who there have been ties to Brooklyn. Even if they're super tiny thin, they've been there. So it's
fair.
it's 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 one of those two, or it's Cam Thomas or Cooper Flag 3 years from now.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you
All
think?
right.
You
Current net Cam Thomas. New net Zion Williamson.
that's a good one. That's a good one.
That's
I would
I
I
don't
would I
know.
would give him better odds than Ant just because I think he'd be easier to pry away than Anthony Edwards is right now.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, 100%. I'm curious what New Orleans is going to do now that Brandon Ingram is gone. If they're going to really try and salvage things with Zion, or try and find a new home for him and just restructure that organization.
Yeah.
They have good pieces, but it's not
I
working there.
expect them to listen to offers this summer. I think it'll be obviously different situation, but also kind of the same where with Cam Johnson, where it's like they don't have to trade him. Like there's a world where they draft, Dylan Harper or Cooper Flag, and they pair him with Zion, and Zion figures it out, and that's a good young team you can build around. There's also a world where they draft one of those guys, they get a super high pick, and then they say, let's get another one of these guys and we can trade Zion and get right back into the top 10 and something like that. So I think their ears will be open, but no guarantees for anything.
Colin, I'm reading D Rock, and shout out to D Rock for being in here. He says Cam Johnson for Zion. I was actually going to ask you, like, what would you do? Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, and a first round pick for Zion? Is that too much or too little?
Both those guys and a
Yeah,
first rounder. Which
yeah,
first rounder? We got any protections on it?
yeah. Protected first rounder. Nothing too special.
If I'm Sean Marks, the thing is there's so much like bad juju around Zion right now. There's really none around Cam Johnson. I guess there's a little bit around Cam Thomas with the injury, but it's still not as much of a thing as like bad juju as Zion is with the conditioning and all that. So if they come to me with that, I'm saying no first round. Like I'm taking a pick out or I'm taking CT out, just because like that would just be my negotiation tactic, because I think the Pelicans are coming from their big chip here has a little bit more risk to it than anything that the Nets are sending out. There's really no risk with any of those guys. Everyone kind of knows who they are at this point. No one really knows what Zion could be, what he could not be. So I wouldn't do it just yet. Again, I want to wait another year. I think their 2026 pick is still valuable, and Zion Williams, being who he is, could compromise that. The better version of himself could compromise that. But it definitely spent some thought on.
I've got a fire alarm going off in here, Colin. So whatever you said is hitting well, and might have set my house on fire.
Well done tying that in. I never would have thought of something like that.
I,
Everything all right? You need to go check on something?
I don't know.
All right. Well, if we need to pause in the name of safety, let me know.
We're gonna take a commercial break, Colin. This season has been a pretty rocky one for our Nets, but one thing that's kept us nice and relaxed through it all is Smooth Talker. Smooth Talker is a new non-carbonated mojito drink made with natural flavors. Folks, they just launched a Mexican Mule as well. You can get them online or at a handful of liquor stores in the city or on Long Island, right where I am. A percentage of every purchase you go to goes to providing food and clothing for underprivileged families in South America. Colin, you've been at Barclays for a lot of those not so fun tanking Nets moments, but now we're at the All Star break. What would you say is the smoothest play or something that you've seen that someone in a Nets jersey has pulled off that's been smooth?
Yeah. Kind of like you said, there's not a whole lot to pick from. You know, Ben Simmons is gone, but when he was there, the Nets did a lot of dribble handoffs, a lot of spamming around him, around Claxton. The play I'm going to talk about is a Dayron one. And, I think teams watching film, they've been able to sniff this out. And the Nets have done a lot of this year. They go around they do a fake dribble handoff, then they cut back the other way, and it either leads to a jumper, or I saw Tyrese Martin do it last night. He was able to get to the hole. It's allowed them to put a lot more pressure on the rim, but the Nets, one of the teams that the Nets have stolen a lot of wins this year is the Milwaukee Bucks, and Cam Thomas has been a big part of that. Doing my film watching, looking back, there's one play where Cam does that. He fakes the dribble handoff. He sneaks back around, pops out, drains a three. That one definitely stands out to me. And then a little honorable mention. I still think, even though he's not on the team anymore, a high point of the season was that West road trip led by Dennis Schroeder, where he was just cooking guys left and right. There was one play in particular when the Nets seized the lead against Golden State where Draymond Green was out on him, and Dennis got him just to bite enough against him on the perimeter and just ended up with a smooth layup to the hole. Just because Draymond Green is probably one of the least smooth players in the league, for better or worse. Definitely used to be for better. Definitely now a lot more for worse. But he absolutely just cooked them. So that was a smooth play that stood out to me as well. What do you think,
Yeah.
Pooch?
Well, right now in this exact moment, I'm thinking I haven't been smooth today, but that transition from the fire alarm going off to smooth talker, shout out to smooth talker for real, was relatively smooth. But when it
Thank you.
comes to
Yeah.
when it comes to the Nets, I I don't know if it's smooth. It was ugly for the Rockets. It was smooth for Brooklyn.
Mhm.
That 6 points in 6 seconds win with D'Angelo Russell hitting the game winner. Like that was the highlight of the season. I don't care if you're rooting for the tank, if you're not rooting for the tank, like that was just in any recent years, that was just such again, I don't know if smooth is the right word, but it was certainly the shot certainly was.
That
Both
was
three-pointers were
that was smooth.
um,
That was smooth. I'll say it was smooth. There was one guy who I think every Nets fan kind of wanted to get that shot to see him have that moment. D'Angelo Russell had a lot of those moments in that building a long time ago. Then he had to go through a lot. He was in a lot of different places. The Nets as a team went through a lot of different players coming in and out there. To get one more moment like that in this little return tenure, whatever you want to make of it, which has been not objectively not as much fun as his first tenure, it was just a little bit of spice from like 2018 sprinkled onto the season. And I was at that game. I was sitting right next to Lucas Kaplan, who does almost all the games with me. And both of our jaws just dropped, and we could see the ball just trickle on back out to him. He was right in line with our viewpoint, and you could just see it was true going through the cylinder from the moment he let that ball go.
it was such a smooth assist from Dylan Brooks in the Rock.
Yes,
It's
yes.
such a
And
smooth assist.
Tosan got a finger or two on that.
Yeah, yeah, we'll give him their credit. It was smooth fingertips
Hmm.
right to
Hmm.
D'Lo for that three.
Absolutely.
That was my favorite play of the year. That was the smoothest play of the year. There haven't been many.
Hmm.
Uh, I think Jordy has been sharp, not smooth.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
while
For sure. For sure.
while we bring up our boy Lucas Kaplan, he dropped a question in the mailbag tonight, Colin. He wants to know. Well, we were gonna put Ben to rest, but Lucas
He
has
always
joined the
finds
chat.
his way back.
Lucas has joined the chat. Just when I thought I was out, they bring me right back in. Lucas wants to know what was the most hopeful, specifically, what was the most hopeful moment of the Simmons era as it relates to him specifically?
So as it relates to him, I think it has to be that game back last year when he came back against Utah. It was in Brooklyn, and I think Ben played like the first 6 or 7 games of the year last year, and then he was out, and he was out for a long time. And the Nets were kind of treading water, but then they started to lose more, and it was kind of the beginning of when it started to get really bad, and they were falling out of the plane. But he came back. It was a game against Utah, and for months, Jock Vaughn had been yapping on and on about how the team was built around Ben Simmons being able to be an engine of the offense and to drive and kick out to these wings. Now, crazy to game plan your whole season around Ben Simmons' health, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. He's gone now. nonetheless, that's what everyone had been waiting for. That's what he had been talking about, and he came back, and that's exactly what we saw. I think he had like 7 or 8 assists in like his first 5 minutes of play. He was moving up and down the court. It wasn't just he wasn't just connecting guys on the fast break. It was like hop, skippity doo, flip around behind the back, like not prime Ben Simmons, but enough to make you think that that guy was still in there. They ended up blowing out the Jazz. I think individually that was definitely his best moment in terms of where you thought this guy can still be something and this team can still be something.
Yeah. There aren't many. I saw him dunk the ball, and I that was like the most hopeful that I got because I figured, maybe his back is right. But I think regarding Lucas's question, like the most hopeful moment for Ben, he sat out the playoffs and the season that he got traded to Brooklyn, right? He sat out that whole season with
Right.
Philly and then Brooklyn.
Yeah.
He came back the next year and he wasn't very good. He was scared to shoot. He looked like a deer in headlights the first like 10 games. He was in and out of the lineup, like all the way up until November. And KD and Kyrie and those guys were pissed off at him. He just wasn't doing it. You could tell he wasn't locked in mentally, physically, whatever it was. But then I don't know what it was. Like it was like a 6 or 7 game stretch in November 2023, I want to say.
They
And
were
he
that was
averaged
when they had that 18-2 stretch. It was their most famous
yes,
20-game stretch ever. Yeah.
yes, he averaged 16, 6, and 6. It was from November 15th to November 25th of 2023.
Mhm.
2022, excuse me. I remember that stretch and being like, Ben is averaging, like, he's actually like attacking the rim. Ben is not scared to shoot the ball. He wasn't perfect, but he was an actual weapon out there. And for a second there, like you mentioned, they were 18-2 during that span. Like it kind of felt like for him, everything was starting to make sense again, and that maybe he needed that little hiccup early, and he was finally feeling healthy and back to it.
Mhm.
And the team was cooking.
Yeah.
So it was a hopeful moment for Ben, and it was a hopeful moment for Nets Nation and Nets World being like, okay, like maybe this could work.
Mhm.
Um, right after that, I mean, he just immediately dropped off. He followed up 2 games with 2 points and then 0 points, and then didn't play much for the rest of the season. I think he played like 10 games the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And nothing has been the same since then for Ben Simmons.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know if it was part of that stretch or maybe it was like a fluke after, but I know it could have been because I remember I was home, so it was either right before Thanksgiving or it was right before Christmas, and he had I think it was still a part of that win streak one way or another. They played Milwaukee. They beat Milwaukee, and he just played great defense on Giannis, and KD did his thing and Kyrie did his thing. I'm gonna still stick with the Jazz game because individually, I think that was still the most promising for him as a player. But looking at it from a team standpoint, they beat Milwaukee at one point near one of the holidays that year, and he played great defense on Giannis, and it was back when the Nets were obviously still contending. They still had KD, they still had Kyrie, so it kind of felt like that rivalry with Milwaukee was still there. It's gone now. The Nets aren't really trying to do anything right now, but it was still there at that point, and it was to me that game. I'll look for the day. I'll pull some clips. I'll tie some highlights in later, but that was the only game where I felt like they were as close as they could have ever been to a big three that could win. So that's another one to flag. But just like the smooth moments of the Barclays, there's not too many to choose from. But I think that those are some good
No,
ones you're able to pick out there.
not a lot. And I think again we could put Ben to rest. That's not an easy question to answer. There really weren't a lot of highs. I'm curious whenever LA comes back to Brooklyn, like, are they gonna put a picture, "Thank you, Ben," and do all this
I think
bullshit?
they
Like,
will. I don't think they'll give him a video. I think they'll put a little thing up. Uh,
there's nothing to put a video up of. Him
you're right.
sitting
You're right.
sitting in nice clothes.
He did have some nice clothes. Not exactly my taste. Not exactly my taste, but I could tell they were expensive.
It worked for Ben Simmons. I don't know about Anthony Puccio and Colin Hellwig.
Yeah, yeah. No, it'll be interesting to see. Do okay, they will host the Clippers this year because they played in LA. That was the game they got
Yeah,
waxed. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think Nets fans boo him? That's
I would
actually
like to see them not. I would like to see them not because he doesn't deserve it, but it's just like, bro, you're not worth booing. Like you're not. We're not going to waste our time with you because he's
no.
not. He's a guy who averaged 6.66. He's on it. He just got bought out of his contract. He's on a veteran minimum. Like the guys you boo are the guys who like really wronged you. This is just like a sad story of a guy who's just like he's like a role player at best now. But let's
Yeah,
save our boos for the guys who are worthy of booing.
I
I'm
agree.
not trying to sound
I
like a
agree.
dick right now, but like that's just
No,
how it is, you know.
I agree. I think a lot of people. I think people will boo him because
So there
there's
will always be someone, yeah.
so yeah, and I think
But you're
it's
right,
not even. Is it even directed at Ben, or is it just the situation as a whole? Right, like
that's what it
it's
is. It'll be
expression.
just be like,
Right.
I'm mad that this didn't work out. I should verbalize it right now.
Yeah. But anyway, moving on. Our last question of the night, and then we'll call it at that. Colin, we got Neil Aces. Any update on Boyan? Any update on DeAnthony Melton?
No. The team does not talk about them. They do not provide updates on them. My hunch is that Boyan gets bought out. You know, I haven't talked to anyone in the team about it, so like don't source me on that. But it's just how it seems. You know, we get no updates from him. Like we get updates from all the other guys. Every time we ask Jordy what's going on with Boyan, it's like, oh, still no contact, no 5-on-5, but he's doing good or he's in
Yep.
good spirits. DeAnthony Melton like won't get bought out. He was just a trade filler, and he's not going to play this year. So I mean, if you buy him out, you're not really like helping anyone. You're just kind of like finishing the deal beforehand, and maybe you end up paying a little bit more tax. I don't know the exact parameters of whatever deal that would be, but it's just like it makes no difference. Just like let his contract expire and let him rehab here. That's really all it is.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about Boyan. I don't know. I don't
They
know.
should
Like
they should buy him out. Like there's really no point.
if he's healthy and can go help a playoff team, I don't see why they wouldn't do that.
Hmm.
They Anthony Melton, I don't know. I mean, they have a roster spot. I think that they'll maybe they'll sign Tyrese Martin to a standard deal,
He's
or
about to hit a benchmark where your two ways can only appear in so many games, and he's about to hit that. And I expect them to convert him. I don't think it would be in good character to tell a guy who you've relied on, who's been a consistent part of your rotation, like you're done, like you're going back to the G League now. Like you reward a guy like that.
right,
I would
right.
expect to see that coming soon.
I would imagine him, maybe Killian Hayes. Now we're kind of grabbing at straws here and looking at Long Island. But
Mm.
that's also what the end of this year is going to be. Like we're going into the All-Star break, and this is what it is. Like there's gonna be 30 something games left, and a lot of people have been asking us, are we going to see Long Island Nets players on the Nets? Could you see? I think we had one last podcast. Like, is Drew Timmy going to play on the Brooklyn Nets? Like anything is possible in these late
Yeah.
stages of the
Uh,
season, especially when you're tanking.
yes.
It's gonna get ugly.
Yeah.
I think they've seen it. I don't know. I don't know, Colin.
Hey, what did I say last week? It's the salty spittoon. We got to prove how tough we are so that we can get a good draft pick. We're still gonna have a good draft pick, guys. We're still like the sixth worst team in the league. Like
Yeah,
it's not like the Cooper flag is there and then everyone sucks after. You know, like come on now. It'll be a better draft pick you've seen the Nets have ever. Like not in your life. I don't know how old all you guys are, but like in a very long time.
yeah.
Let's not forget that. Let's not forget that the team
2009.
I wrote last night that like the Nets, yeah, they're better than the true basement dwellers. They're still not a good team. Like they're in the basement, and it's not like a flex to be the closest one sitting next to the ladder in the basement that will like carry you up. They're going to get a draft pick. They will get a young player. Maybe it's not Cooper Flag, but you know they're still rebuilding. They're taking the right steps. It will be all right. Just got to gut it out.
Yeah, let me ask you real quick. You think Wizards fans feel better than Nets fans right now? I'm not dissing
No,
them, but
no, I don't think they are. I think that
no.
it's like the crying guy in front of like the like smirk
Yeah, yeah,
face like Wojak meme where it's like, dude, your team stinks. Like and
yeah.
like your coach is giving you no like I mean I don't want to like crap on what's his name
Brian Keefe.
I don't want to dump on him but you know like there's been nothing to tell you that even when you do draft Cooper Flag you're gonna be a good team eventually. Charlotte got LaMelo Ball. James Wiseman was the higher pick, but they got LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball is a stud. They haven't been able to do anything because
Right.
they haven't been able to build the infrastructure. The Nets look like a team where if they do get a guy, they are building the infrastructure to compete eventually. So I think it's something that you can, as a Wizards fan, you can cope and you can point to the odds and say, we are in a good spot, but everything else is like it's so flimsy under that. And you pointing at your loss record isn't going to hold up. It's
No,
just not.
no, no. I think once May 12th comes, Nets fans will feel good about everything that happened this year. It wasn't an easy one, but we just need to get there. So
Yeah.
before we log off, Colin, I know you're a Pennsylvania guy. Um,
No, we're not talking about it.
I can't congratulate you
I
on the
hate the
Eagles.
Eagles, bro. I hate the Eagles.
What's your take from the Super Bowl? I want to hear what you think.
It's that nah, bro. I'm gonna. It's
I
gonna be
triggered you.
some not safe for work if you ask me what I really think.
I triggered you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I feel like this world is not in a good place right now because the Philadelphia Eagles are on the top of the world right now.
Everybody was rooting for them too. That's when you know things are all fucked up.
No, they weren't. No, they were not. Not at my apartment. I had a Super Bowl party. There was only 2 people there who were rooting for the Eagles, and they were getting
Really.
bitched at. They were getting bitched at by me, so they didn't even have a good time.
I had like 8 people here, and I was the only one rooting for the Chiefs. Shout out to Nostradamus in the live chat right now.
Yes,
I
yes,
wanted to see
a
the
real
three-peat.
one.
I can't root for Philly. I can't root for Philly sports.
I think I'm done watching football, and I mean that in all seriousness. Eli Manning doesn't get in the Hall of Fame. I have to watch the Eagles be the best team in the league every year. I have to watch the Giants be the worst team in the league every year.
Yeah,
The NFL is just a constant middle finger in my face. So why would I
Saquon is
continue?
dancing on your
Like
grave right now,
I
bro.
was never the biggest Saquon guy because I just thought he was corny and they never won with him. But it's like, hey, here's your captain, here's your supposed best player. Dexter Lawrence is the best player, but supposed best player, and he goes to the rival and wins a Super Bowl right away. Like that doesn't happen. That only happens to Giants fans. So
Absolutely.
and everyone says, "Oh, you're 2 Super Bowls, you're 2 Super Bowls." Well, the NFL just told me that those and the guy who won them, none of it really matters because he's not even going to the Hall of Fame. He didn't even get close. So
Right.
big 2 double birds to the NFL. I'm an NBA guy. Go basketball, go Nets.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I love the NFL product right now, but that was a horrible, horrible game. It was a horrible game. And shout out to the Eagles. I know you don't want to give them credit, but they kicked ass. They came in. They were obviously the much more prepared team on the defensive side and offensive side. But
No,
there
no,
is nothing to talk about.
no, they suck.
Well, Philly sports for sure. Sorry, Colin, or better yet, sorry, Colin's friends that are listening to the Brooklyn Pod.
Yeah.
Any
Whatever.
final notes from the meditation zone over there?
Nah, man. I'm tired. I'm ready for the All-Star break. I'll be there. Who do we got tomorrow? Remind me. Philly. Philly. We got Philly. Speaking of, yeah,
Wow.
we got Philly tomorrow, so I'll be there. Anyone listen, come say what's up, unless you're an Eagles fan. Otherwise, peace out. Enjoy
Thursday,
the All-Star
Thursday
break.
will be Thursday will be a good one, Colin. They got Cleveland and Brooklyn. So you got Kenny Atkinson and the old crew.
Oh,
Some
when
of
they
the
cut
old crew.
the week after, yeah, when they come back, yeah, that'll be a fun
Yeah.
one.
Oh, sorry, February 20th. Yeah.
Bingo. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
guys, if you see Colin at Barclays Center, give him a hug. On that note, you can follow us at the Brooklyn Pod on X, Instagram, TikTok. You can email us at thebrooklynpod@gmail.com if you want to get your questions away. Shout out to Smooth Talker for giving us a little bit of love and smooth talking with some mojitos.
Yes,
Colin,
sir. Yes, sir.
that's it for me. Everybody that's tuned in, thank you for your support and have a great night.